What is going on, everybody? Hope you're all having a great Monday. Hope everybody had a good weekend. Coming off a really good Sunday myself, had finished third in this afternoon Wildcat. It looked like I was going to come in second or first. The big play from Brady at the end. Unfortunately, no field goal, and unfortunately that knocked me out of that. But still a really good day. Ready to keep the momentum going, and had a really good Friday too in NBA. So let's keep the momentum going. I'm going to keep this video pretty short, because we don't really have there's a whole lot of news that I feel like we still don't have, even though there's a lot of news already that we do have. Which is why I'm going to start off with what we want to prioritize tonight. So you want to prioritize the Clippers situation. Obviously, with no Paul George, there's a lot of usage to go around. I know it's not in Phoenix, but Marcus Morris and Markieff Morris, both, you can look it up, tend to have pretty big games against their former team. Also, with without George and the price, I think Morris is a really strong play. Reggie Jackson being the preferred option in that game amongst everybody, followed by Terrence Mann and Brandon Boston for me. Boston a little bit less interesting because we don't necessarily need all that value, but he's actually put up some nice games. So I think they're all viable. And then your long shot play would be Luke Kennard in this spot. But I do think trying to backweight this LA Clippers stack is a good way to go. We also don't know what's going to happen with DeAndre Ayton, right? Like, that ended up being pretty much a big difference maker on Friday. And we, with him questionable, if he's out again, JaVale at 4K is going to be an awesome play in this matchup, especially. So I do think that trying to get pieces of both sides of this game, I did mention it the other day that just like the old against your old team thing, Jay Crowder always has big fantasy games against Boston, and he did last week. I don't think I'm going to go that far today, but I would say that maybe keeping a spot for McGee if we don't know, because I'm sort of leaning into that Ayton may sit. Anyway, we don't know. We don't necessarily need to speculate. There's ways you can pivot over. I do think McGee becomes more of a priority than some of the other guys. It is just an illness for Ayton, so maybe he plays. I don't know. We'll see what happens with that one, hopefully. But as of right now, I think back stacking these games are really a good way to go. Along those same lines, it makes guys like Jokic. We don't know what's going to happen with Will Barton, but Jokic is definitely a spend up I like. I actually think he's not my favorite spend up, but I think he's completely viable. And the fact that his game starts at, second latest game on the slate does make it a little bit more interesting. I have my priority plays, like the guys who are going to be the foundation: Reggie Jackson, Jalen Brunson, Xavier Tillman, and Marcus Morris as sort of the main core pieces. But there's a bunch of other guys you could include in that conversation, as well as some good tournament options. I do think those with Jackson, Brunson, and Tillman, that's probably your cash game core as of right now. The Memphis game also starts a little bit later, so you get the extra hour. Tillman is my priority. I do like Dylan Brooks quite a bit. Desmond Bane, maybe a little bit less than I did before. We do have Jaren Jackson as questionable. Should he play? I think that he's really interesting in this matchup. And I think that Joel Embiid is one of the priority spend ups you do want on the slate. So mostly I'm going to be skipping most of the early stuff in the early games, and focusing on these slightly later games, the 8 Eastern games and later. I have the rankings of my value as my spend ups as Embiid, Giannis, Trey at the moment. Trey's got 5 games in a row, 25 and 10. Does seem like he's, the offense, he had 44% usage rate the other night. It was pretty nuts. Maybe it was even higher. I think those are the guys you're looking at for spend ups. And I'm just looking at, though, Atlanta is a little bit earlier on the earlier side. This could easily be a blowout against Houston. We know how that goes. I think Clint Capella is an interesting play, not just because of the old Houston revenge narrative or anything like that, but I think he's at 7,800. He's very viable. And John Collins, if you didn't want to use him. The problem is I just have a hard time seeing Houston keeping this game especially close. I do still have interest in Armani Brooks, though. They've given him the run. He's played well with it. He's still projecting really well at 4,800. He's another guy you can throw in the mix. He's put over 30 fantasy points 3 games in a row at 4,800. That's obviously really, really good. And Porzingis is going to be really popular. I just want to say, he is a good play. But I think we might be making a mistake if you're just treating this like he's automatically going to smash because Luka's gone. I just don't see he's really not entirely that type of player. Yeah, sure, it benefits him, but I don't think his usage rate even went up when Luka was out last time. It just sort of was he put up big in the games, but it was sort of like the Jalen Brunson show. So I think he's a good play, but maybe not quite as strong as some of the other projections will have them. trying to see if there's anything else. I think look, we haven't seen it from him in forever because they haven't needed it, and they're a good overall team. I think no one is going to play Steph. So on a big slate, I think it's kind of interesting to maybe take that shot. That's in the earlier games, and you really need him to just go have one of those, out of this world performances at this price that he's at, because he's really gotten up there. One other thing I want to touch on is Sacramento. Marvin Bagley at 3,800 has definitely been getting more run. And I think is actually like probably under projected based on what his actual usage has been. And I think Bagley is a really strong play. I think that he's going to play. I think he could play up to close to 30 minutes probably. And I think that's at that price at 3,800, it's really hard not to have interest in him. Halliburton is way too cheap at 5,700. We've certainly seen both sides of it, the good and the bad, with him, but I think that it's a really strong opportunity at 5,700. It just feels like he's a guy who can go out there and literally get you like 50 or 60. I mean, we just saw 50 a couple games back, had a down game against Cleveland. No big deal. That happens to everybody against Cleveland. Sometimes they're good defensively. And in Toronto here, I do think you want some exposure to some of these Kings. The other one being Harrison Barnes, who's just a little too cheap. So again, that's sort of how I've got it this late, shaping up for me. I do think that the Charlotte situation is something that I haven't figured out yet. You're going to have Rozier back, possibly Washington. It's a little tricky to want to play these guys, but I'm still a little bit tempted because we've seen such huge production from some of them so far this season that I was so far with with the other guys out that it's kind of interesting, but I think it's probably going to end up being a stay away. I did want to, try and mini stack the Dallas game. Tim Hardaway Jr. and Dorian Finney-Smith, by the way, also firmly in play. So priorities for cash, for whatever, Arjax, Brunson, Tillman. Next would be Morris for me. Sadler, Spendups, Embiid, Giannis, Trey. Mid-tier, Porzingis, Capella, Collins, Aaron Brooks, Halliburton, Barnes as guys who are just too cheap. That's sort of my main thing. But I think you want to focus on the Clippers, the Mavs, and somewhat on the Memphis situation, depending on what happens with Jaren Jackson Jr. Anyway, guys, good luck to everybody. Hopefully we get another 5-figure plus score for one of us tonight, and or for all of us, hopefully. And let's crush it. I'll see you guys at 6 Eastern time, and then Sheets should be back, I think, on Wednesday. But it'll be me flying solo doing a live show. So make sure to show up on time, and we can get through all the questions and have some fun. Good luck, everybody.